Recently, the Green Lantern movie came to Netflix, and for some reason it hit the trending page. For some reason. I've always known Green Lantern to be a bad movie, so it hitting the trending tab really caught my attention. Because I've never even actually seen the movie. Green Lantern is a bit of a blank spot in my DC knowledge. I can pull some pretty deep cuts from the DC catalog, but when it comes to Green Lantern, I don't know much above the base level. He's a space cop guy with a green ring and absurdly creative weapons. Sure, I could tell you all the Lantern Ring colors and the millions of legacy characters to take up the mantle after Alan Scott, but I couldn't name a single story from the Lanterns outside of a team-up book or a big event. And I really should know more, seeing as how he's a main staple of the core Justice League lineup. And even starting a team-up book with my favorite hero, Green Arrow, that brought one of Green Arrow's biggest stories of all time. Yet, Green Lantern stuff remains a blank spot for me. So how would I even go about getting into a character with over 80 years of history? Of course, you start with the easy stuff. Movies, TV, big events, one-shots. Heroes that have been around as long as the Lanterns are bound to make an appearance here or there in other media, whether it's a guest appearance in a cartoon or as a member of an ensemble cast. But Green Lantern has hit heights many characters never hit. Not only did he lead his own animated series in the incredible DC animated universe, but also a solo animated movie, and of course, the live-action film, which actually might be the best place to start. Live-action movies always cover the basics, and is where I learned most superhero origins as a kid anyway. So is it really as bad as people say, or does Green Lantern actually deserve that Netflix trending spot? Let's dive into Green Lantern. Development first started on a Green Lantern movie all the way back in 1997, with not much getting done before 2007 when Greg Berlanti was hired to write and direct the movie. If the name Greg Berlanti isn't ringing a bell for you, he's responsible for pretty much every TV show with the DC label on it in the last 10 years. Arrow, Flash, Titans, Doom Patrol, Supergirl, Stargirl, even things outside the DC circle like Riverdale and Sabrina. If it's based on a comic that angsty teens would love, Berlanti's name's attached to it. Later on in development, Berlanti was moved out of the director position and Martin Campbell took up the mantle. Before landing on this final team and the script, the movie went through an abundance of different versions. At one point, Kevin Smith was approached and he declined. Tarantino was given the offer as well, and the idea of a comedy action version starring Jack Black was even thrown around. And when it came to other casting ideas, Bradley Cooper, Justin Timberlake, and Jared Leto were all considered for the role of Hal Jordan before Ryan Reynolds. Starring alongside Reynolds would be his future wife that he met on the set of this film, Blake Lively, Guy in Movies, Peter Sarsgaard, Kingsman, Mark Strong, and Taika Waititi. The Taika Waititi. The movie follows the story of test pilot Hal Jordan and his journey from guy that flies plane to guy that flies human. The opening of the film starts off with what is its biggest problem. Trying to fit all the lore you need about a character with over 80 years of history that takes place in multiple galaxies is a hard task to do in just 2 hours, and they picked the worst way to do it. Not only is it the opening, but anytime something requires a little bit of extra explanation, everything halts for these long slogs of narration with nothing for visuals other than some green beams of light like an old Xbox dashboard. After 2 minutes that feels like 2 hours of narration, you'll see a squad of Green Lantern Corps members get their souls of their skeletons sucked out by Parallax, who is this movie's big bad, who quickly turns into Zero the dog from Nightmare Before Christmas and flies away to snack on some planets. On the way to his next planet, Parallax injures skinless grape Abon Sur, who escapes and heads towards Earth looking for the successor to take his lantern ring before he dies. We are then instantly thrusted to a post-thrust Ryan Reynolds, stripped down to his underpants, and then a Sum 41 song kicks in as he rushes to get ready for work, but can't leave without making a silly joke only the way Ryan Reynolds can. Right here I really thought I was in for a great movie. They set up an impossible villain to defeat. They gave us some pre-Deadpool PG-13 Ryan Reynolds charisma. But then, what proceeded managed to put me to sleep 4 times in a half hour. Our hero Hal gets to work at Ferris Security, where he works as a test pilot, to show companies the quality of Ferris drones. This is where we're introduced to both Blake Lively and Taika Waititi's characters, Carol Ferris and Tom. Hal takes on some Saber drones in a dogfight and is forced to stall his plane to win, where he gets flashbacks of his father's death and has to eject from the plane. And after that, we get introduced to Hal's family at his nephew's birthday party for no reason, because they never show up again. And Hal gets kidnapped by a big green orb and is flown through the sky, which is how I picked up my wife for our first date. Just kidding, she picked me up in a tan Buick. So it's basically the same thing. Hal lands and gets the lantern ring from Abon Sur, as he explains that the ring chose Hal for the great honor of being a lantern because of what it sees in him. Tom shows up and they escape before Ferris agents can find them with an alien. While that's happening, Sinestro, the other pink alien, convinces the Guardians to let him take out a squad of the strongest lanterns to go after Parallax. And Ferris security tracks down a scientist named Hector Hammond, Peter Sarsgaard, to have him investigate Abon Sur's body. Hammond touches Abon Sur's wound and gets some yellow eyes, and Hal finally does something cool when he says the Green Lantern oath. Directly after that, he goes for a drink with Carol, where he gets attacked by angry dudes because Hal lost them their jobs when he destroyed the Saber drone.
They took our jobs! Yeah, they took our jobs!
Hal green punches them and gets trapped in another green orb, followed by a lot of screaming. And this is where I stopped watching for the first time, because I was at the end of nap number 4. But I can't just give up, because all 20 of my viewers need to know about this movie. So I tried again the next day, and honestly, wasn't that bad from here on. When Hal gets to Oa, the planet of the lanterns, the movie shifts from boring fighter pilot movie to wacky superhero cartoon. The amount of CGI from here on is absurd and used at such a high volume that you might forget that you're watching a Green Lantern movie and think it's a photorealistic Pixar movie about chicken aliens. Yes, the modern MCU movies are known to be riddled with effects, but they are done at an outrageous quality. These 10-year-old effects look 10 years older than they actually are, and the quality drops even more when they're so overly used. Almost everything is CG from this point. All of Oa, the suits, the eyelids, even the other lanterns. But if you ignore the serious tone and take it for what it is, you might actually enjoy the back half of this movie. While on Oa, we get some more backstory narration, but this time at least it's from Chicken Little. After that, Hal gets trained to use his lantern ring by Kilowog, and then shows his skills to Sinestro, who beats him so badly, he quits the Lantern Corps on his first day. When Hal gets back to Earth, he attends a Ferris party, where our creepy scientist friend takes the weirdest drink humanly possible and gets mad that Carol doesn't like him. So he uses his newly gained abilities to take down the owner of Ferris Security's plane, but not before Hal can fly in and save the day. He uses his ring to turn the plane into a car and some racetracks to safely guide it to the ground, after it flops on the ground like a beached whale for a minute. After saving the day, Hal returns home where Tom makes him show off what the ring can do and convinces Hal to go see Carol. When he gets to Carol's house, she sees right through his mask because it covers basically nothing. After that, Hammond gets a big head and traps Carl Ferris, Carol's dad, where Hal once again swoops in to save the day, which kicks off the coolest fight scene of the whole movie. The fight ends with Carl dying and Hal being defeated by Hammond, and Hammond learning Hal's identity. When Hal escapes, his friends convince him to face his fear and be a hero, so he returns to Oa to rejoin the Corps. But Sinestro is trying to convince the Guardians to use the power of the Yellow Lantern, which represents fear, to fight against Parallax. Hal convinces them not to do it and goes back to Earth to take on Hammond once again, who this time has kidnapped Carol, but their fight is quickly halted by Parallax coming to Earth to destroy it. This is where the movie ends after an epic battle between Hal and Parallax that goes all the way from the city streets to space, and Hal is finally accepted by Sinestro and the rest of the Corps after defeating Parallax. Of course, this wouldn't be a superhero movie without it having planned sequels, and this movie had 2. The first is teased in a mid-credit scene of Sinestro putting on the yellow ring to set him up as a villain for the next film. That was never made. Green Lantern barely made a return on investment, and the future films were scrapped to make way for the DCEU that launched 2 years later with Man of Steel, which is probably for the best because Reynolds found success with his third attempt to be a superhero in the excellent Deadpool franchise. And DC has finally found their footing in both the movie and the TV world. I'm not one to normally trash movies. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I like bad movies. It really only requires one of 3 things for me to love a movie: Pete Davidson, good fight scenes, or superheroes. So the perfect movie already exists in my world. So does Green Lantern deserve that trending spot? Absolutely not. Is it good? Absolutely not. But if you're a fan of the days before every superhero movie was gritty and serious like Batman 66 and the Donner Superman films, you might just have some fun with the back half of this. So of course, if you know of any other poorly made superhero movies to torture me with, you can always suggest those with a comment. And if you want to validate me on listening to 2 hours of narration that I'll never get back, you can also subscribe. Go watch Green Lantern. Or at least the back half. Or none of it.